I'm Aliossz. I have been casting for a while, although this is my first time with AEL, but it's also come back, so that kind of makes sense. I was a player for a while, for like 4.5 years, until I just kind of felt it was the right time to stop and move over to the casting booth, so I can bring that knowledge into the broadcast that I partake in, which has been a journey, but it's been a fun one. I went from doing like the XGS Spring Burst to Element 3 in like 6 months, so it's always a good time. Well, I would watch like Pro League like everyone else did. A lot since I was a player. And the doing the casting just seemed like it'd be interesting. It seemed like it'd be fun, and I especially liked people like Kickstar who brought that knowledge they had from being a player into the game and into the casting. And so that is kind of what I started doing. And then I went from like Underground League doing a single cast to like Genesis. I was in UPL for like a cast, and I just kind of kept like floating around and like making contacts and just kind of like slowly working on the casting that I've been doing. And then recently I made the decision to stop like playing competitive and fully step into casting. And so now with the kind of extra commitment to it, I have gotten a lot better, a lot more quickly. And I mean, like I said in the intro, I'm doing like not like the full blown like pro am part of E3, but I did do the qualifiers, and I am on phase two, which is the Swiss stage. So it has been kind of a rise that was faster than I expected. So the first cast I did was for Underground League. They just kind of needed someone for the grand final, and so my teammate and I at the time just hopped on and casted, and it was a good time. Neither of us knew what we were doing. We were both terrible. It was a good enough time, and then I just kind of stuck around with Underground League for a little bit, and then someone that I knew at the time just kind of like was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get you in Genesis," and then that's kind of how everything started. That's where the magic began. I think the thing I enjoyed most about casting is just seeing the way. I mean, so I do color casting, which means that it's kind of my job to do the analysis during the cast. And so I get to look at how different teams and different players want to look at the puzzle that the defense sets up for like a site. And then, like, how is the attack going to break that down? How is the defense going to react to that? And just kind of like picking apart every little detail that's happening and creating a narrative that is something that a viewer can follow, as well as just like learning about different ways that the game can progress, and just kind of seeing everything unfold is always really entertaining to me. I mean, I before I was a caster, I was a singer, and so I have put a lot of effort into learning to do good vocal health. And so like there's a kind of tea that I like that's called throat coat that like is designed to soothe your throat that I'll drink a little bit of before a cast. Sometimes I'll do vocal exercises, just kind of like warm ups, going up and down scales just to get things going. And if I can, I like to look at the teams that I'm casting for a little bit beforehand, just to kind of get a feel for how they like to play the game. But it's not rocket science. There haven't been any like crazy things happening. I guess kind of it wasn't like on a cast, but the most kind of surreal thing was like I sent a message to Ferme, but he messaged the TPL staff server, and he's saying like, hey, we're maybe looking for more people to expand E3 and on the production side, so shoot me a message and I'll get back to you later. And then I did, and I actually was then invited to cast elements in the qualifiers, and then as well just like getting to cast the Swiss stage for tier 2, even though it's not like I couldn't call myself like a tier 2 caster technically, but it is kind of surreal to having spent so much time like grinding for tier 2 in the past to now be casting it is a very nice feeling. There haven't really been like too many like big I mean, I think the biggest obstacle was that I was trying to play for so long instead of just casting, and so I wasn't like putting as much effort in as I could have been, because it was never like it was like I would get dropped for a little bit, and that would coincide with like Xenon or like TPL or something needing a caster, and so I'd kind of throw myself in there, and then I would get picked up again like after those finished, and then I would continue playing. But now that's out of the way. So I mean, it's just now a matter of like putting the work in and putting the time in and just showing up. I mean, I kind of pointed out earlier, but like the obvious answer is Kickstar. Like, I think everyone who's casted, especially every color caster, has looked at Kickstar and said, yeah, that guy's an inspiration. Rightly so. He is, I still think, the best caster that Rainbow has ever produced. But like, even like people like Lynx, I like Lynx a lot. He is, when I was preparing to watch or to cast Element, I watched a lot of his casts from the Manchester Major just to kind of prepare that way, just kind of borrow from him. I also really like Fluke a lot. Just having like like a queer person like that in that position as a caster is something that I do really appreciate. And she's also just she's my personal favorite play by play that Siege has. I think she's the best play by play we have right now. I always love a good Fluke cast. I mean, I've only ever casted Siege. I mean, it's kind of been like the only esport I've really cared enough to like learn to cast, I guess. I would like to cast some CS at some point, but there's a lot I would need to learn before I could do that. And it's harder to break into CS just because it is like a much bigger esport. I would like to cast X Defiant as well, actually. I really like X Defiant. But I mean, yeah, just I've only really done Siege. And the way my focus has kind of changed is just it is more serious now than before, because I always enjoyed doing it, but before it was kind of like, I'm gonna like cast sometimes when I have some time, but I'm gonna like, make it to T2 as like a player. I'm gonna do that. But now it is like casting is the main involvement that I have, really the only involvement I have in esports right now. And so it's just kind of changed to be like the main focus, really. I don't actually have a career in esports casting. Fun fact. I do not. I've not gotten paid since the Game Rogue Summer Series. If you want to start casting, I say just like reach out to people that you know and just see what connections they have. Leagues are always looking for casters. Hell, I got to do my first cast because they just needed a caster, and I was like, you know what, I want to learn to cast. Like, throw me on there. And then someone else from who had connections in Genesis was like, hey, you're way too good to be doing this here. Let me just let me ask the owner if I can get you in. And then through there I met better casters who are able to help me learn more. So just like reach out, see what connections people have, just talk to people, network, as well as just watch people that are better than you and just really like analyze like what they're saying and why. That was something that helped me a lot when I first started. Was I watched like a lot of Kickstar and kind of used that to as a foundation to build the casting style that I have now, where you could definitely still see the Kickstar influence, I think, but it's like it's me that you're watching. But that was something that helped me to lay the first bricks that I got as a caster. I mean, I don't really feel it, to be honest. I mean, something I always said as a player is you have to have like absolutely delusional confidence. Like you gotta go into the lobby peeking like prime news and thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna beat that guy. And that was something I picked up as a player. And even as a caster, like, I don't go into it thinking like, oh, I'm casting a T2 tournament now. Like I have to be good. Like I just go in and I know that I put in the work. I've done the practice. I have the ability to correct mistakes on the fly. Like I just trust that I know what I'm doing and that I'm going to fix the mistakes as they happen and then just kind of roll with it. I I mean, I do music. I mean, you can see a bass guitar and the acoustic guitar behind me. I really like music. It's something that I'm very passionate about and that I engage with a lot in all forms. I mean, there's not like a ton to discuss, I guess. Like I kind of, go and do stuff with friends sometimes, just go hang out, play music, do whatever. Well, technically, it hasn't happened yet, but I think it's going to be Element 2 Phase 2 or Element 3 Phase 2. Is it was I have a lot of respect for the people that are in Element, and even though like I kind of said earlier, it's not like the main Element season. Just being able to say like I casted Element, like my voice is in like a tier 2 tournament at some level is honestly kind of surreal and a lot farther than I thought I would get realistically, because the upward mobility as a caster is very, very strange without work sometimes. But I got there and I impressed during the quals, I think. The opportunity to do it again in the Swiss stage in Phase 2. And so that's what I'm going to do. I see TriCast becoming more of a thing. And we have been seeing them more in like grand finals and stuff. But I think that at more levels, we're going to start seeing TriCasts pop up more and more. It gives a very interesting dynamic with like casting and the way that people work. And in interview that Fiends did with Deb Marta in Atlanta, I kind of talked about how like the roles shift quite a bit when you're doing a TriCast. And I think that seeing that in like T3 and like T2 and T4 would be a very interesting thing to see. I think the cliche answer is SI. You're probably going to see a lot of people saying SI just because it is like the big siege event. I wouldn't want to cast like an NA team winning, no matter where it is. I think in like some international competition, even if it's just like a minor event, like a DreamHack, or like if an OGA pit ever happens again. Just like seeing my region lift the trophy is always fun. But I would like to cast SI. SI would be fun. So I see a lot is like one thing we're taught to do with casting is you'll have games sometimes where one team is just playing really really poorly, and what you'll normally do is you'll talk about how one team is taking advantage of it rather than just saying like, oh well, this team is terrible, because that's just not like a great thing to do. And a lot of the times you will see people say, oh well, they're biased, they're just glazing this one team, but like it is better, at least in my opinion, to say like talk about a team, like a team's successes rather than like a team being terrible, because we don't just want to sit there and like glaze one team. Like we like games that are interesting, and games that are completely one-sided just aren't interesting at all. I've had my fair share of games where it's like, what the hell do I say, because this team's just losing their ones yet again, and I can't make this interesting for the viewer because there's only so many ways I can say like they just have to click on their heads. Well, I've been told to tell you where you can find me. So, I mean, all my social media is the same. It's Alios, Alioo, or ALIOSSZ. I guess for Instagram because someone took that at some point before I could get to it. So that's a little unfortunate, but whatever. So you can find me there. I will be around for like I think I'm doing Blitz Gaming Series as well. If you want to see me cast more, I'll be around the AEL more as well. When Xenon comes back, I am slated to do that as well as when Xenon, or not Xenon, TPL makes its return in a little bit. And if this goes out before the Phase 2 stuff for Element, you will see me there. I have a couple casts coming up this week, and hopefully many more, provided I don't like do terribly. So yeah, you can catch me there.